What's going on YouTube? Hello and welcome back to the channel, you guys. We're going to take a look at some tips that I believe will be very beneficial to your improvement as a player in KOF 15. But with that being said, let's go ahead and get right to it. Let's jump right in and get it going, shall we? Alright, so the first tip we're going to get into here is focus on basic hit confirms. Now, I know this is the most basic of the basics. Notice a lot of uses of the word basic here, but you should definitely spend some time, practicing your hit confirms, even the most simple ones, right? The simple hit confirms are very good to help you guys out in just dishing out damage, And I do believe that KOF 15's trials do provide some fairly decent combos for you to practice, so I think you should definitely give those combos a go. Next up, stop rolling so much, you guys. Rolling is a strong mechanic. However, a lot of newer players tend to abuse the option because of its invulnerability. Now, I know this is very appealing because it helps you avoid situations, especially on wake up, but it is highly advised to use it a little less. It's okay to block sometimes, you guys. Next up, don't over abuse small jumps. A lot of new players really love the small jump, and small jump is very strong. It's a very strong way of approaching your opponents, and they can be very difficult to anti-air. However, while that may be the case, your pressure will be very static, and if you're not careful, you're likely to get punished by players of higher caliber. So, don't overabuse it. Remember, small jump responsibly. Now, this is a tip I really cannot stress enough. Learn to manage your meter better. KOF 15 has a lot that you can do with your meter. Blowing away your meter for EX moves without a purpose is a big time waste of meter, you guys. In addition, blowing away your meter just for max mode activations with quick max doesn't really do you any service either. Okay? Remember, you need to consider what is happening on the screen in your games before you decide to spend your meter. Be a little bit smarter about your meter usage. Next tip, utilize your universal defensive mechanics. Now, this goes in tandem with managing your meter. For one bar, you have access to two very strong defensive mechanics. First up is guard cancel blowback. Now, this is great for getting your opponent off of you while you're blocking pressure. It's very fast and does a little bit of damage. You also have access to guard cancel roll. Now, this is also very strong and allows you to shift your positioning to either escape pressure safely or to score a punish in a predictable pressure string. Also, you guys, please don't forget that just simply blocking is also a defensive mechanic, so don't get hit unnecessarily out here in your games. Alright, the next tip we got here is keep an eye on your guard gauge. Now, this kind of comes back to your defensive mechanics as well, but on defense, be sure to take a moment to look up at your guard gauge. When you're on defense, you do take guard damage, in addition to chip damage. So when it's looking kind of grim for your guard gauge, be sure to use the defensive mechanics we just previously discussed to get out of a potential guard crush situation. Another tip we have here is remember that HP regenerates per round. So how this works is the amount of HP regenerated is based on the time left on the clock after you down a character on the opposing team. The higher the time left, the more HP regenerated. The lower the time left, the regenerated health is lowered. If there is a time over, the winner is awarded a fixed amount of HP for the next round. Next tip we have here is, you guessed it, you guys. You probably didn't guess it, but experiment with different characters. I cannot stress this enough. KOF 15 has such a large roster of characters that you're bound to find more characters that you may enjoy playing. Not to mention the DLC and other potential DLC along the way. So yeah, get to experimenting. Now, these next two tips I believe are pretty important, and first up of the last two is don't lock into your team order. Now, this is something that I suggest getting into the habit of because team order is still a strategic point of KOF. Learning to flex your team order actually aids you in quite a few areas, but in particular, meter management and decision making with said character, and in addition to that, strengthening your characters in matchups. Now, in most cases, early on, players tend to have fairly weak anchor characters when you're new to KOF. But at the same time, they have very strong point and mid characters. So essentially, you hardly get to play your anchor. It's very important to flex your order. So strengthen up that roster of yours and flex that order. And lastly, this is a tip I do believe is very much so important. Do not worry about tier lists. Never forget, tier lists change. They're always subjective. They're not always 100% factual and concrete. Things change, things evolve, metas change, etc., etc. You guys know the ordeal when it comes to tier lists. So yeah, experiment. Don't worry about the tier list. And that'll do it, you guys. Whew. We got through this kind of quick. Nice, short, and sweet, right? Now, hopefully these tips will help you become that much stronger of a player in KOF 15. If there's anything you wish for me to cover in future videos, feel free to let me know in the comments what you'd like to learn or highlight about KOF 15. Now I'm gonna go ahead and get up out of here. I'll catch you cool cats in the next video. Take care, peace and love. Play more KOF. Peace.